Let me go ahead and introduce our presenters for today. We have Gary Hensley, the VP of Business Development for Follett Software, and then a very special guest, NFL veteran and founder and CEO of Money Vehicle, Judd Collins. So let me bring these speakers to this stage, and I will hand things.
Awesome. Thank you. And hello, everybody. It's great to have you back in for this Follett webinar series that Jed actually needs a name, so we're working on that. For right now, it's just the Follett webinar series. Just a couple housekeeping things, and a reminder of what this webinar series is all about. We at Follett are, trying to bring the best of the best speakers and resources to our community. And as we go out there, we think about all of the topics related to financial literacy or fundraising. And Jed was one of those people that came to mind because he has, one, an amazing story that I think will be inspiring to you. And so we're going to dig into a little bit of that story today. But two, he's doing some amazing work for kids and across the country. So excited to kind of share both his journey and kind of what he's doing in the world of financial literacy for education. But before we get going, a couple just housekeeping reminders. If you have a question, we'll try to get to any questions you might have. That'll be in the Q&A section. So we'll be monitoring those throughout the webinar. So if you have something, put it in there and we will get to those at the end. And I promised I made a LinkedIn post about this. I was super excited about this webinar, and it's kind of an interesting story how the two of us met. Kind of unlikely in a lot of ways, but about a year ago, which is crazy to think, in October, I was attending a EdTech week in New York. I kind of went randomly. I hadn't been to an EdTech conference in quite some time, and they had a walk around New York City in the morning on the across the bridges, and it was, I think it's called the High Line. And it was like 7:30 in the morning, and I figured, well, if it's a walk at 7:30, nobody's going to be ready for the conference. I'm going to wear sweats, and I think I had a Peloton shirt on. So I go on, a Peloton shirt. Yeah. So I go to this thing, and I realized very quickly I am the only one that got the memo that you're not supposed to wear sweatpants to an EdTech walk in the morning. So anyway, I noticed pretty quickly that I was the only one there, but there was really not a whole lot I could do. So I went on the walk. At the end of the walk, this guy next to me goes and says, "Hey, I guess neither one of us got the memo." And Jed was introduced himself. He was also wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt for the morning walk. So you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know how being just a little bit different, sticking out a little bit, might lead to something absolutely amazing. And I've got the chance to know Jed over the last year from that interaction. We just kind of hit it off and started talking about kind of the future and the world, the way we see the world, and what we can do in education, and our passion for serving that community. And with that, Jed, thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited.
Gary, a lesson to all people out there, not just young students, but truly everybody. Go up, introduce yourself, shake a hand. We all are in search for community and that feeling of kind of comfortability. So no, it is, I love that a year later, it has led us to this point. I always believe in never delaying gratitude. So Gary and the Follett community, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm very excited to be here. This is a discussion, a conversation that I'm passionate about. So just excited to get rolling.
Awesome, man. I came up with a new phrase. It's be kind and make friends. I think those are rules to live by.
So I will say, I steal a little that when I let my girls go off to school every morning, I tell them three things: be kind, try hard, I love you. And if I can encapsulate kind of how to begin a day, those are the three things I want them to remember.
Awesome, man. I love that. I might steal that from you.
Go for it.
As I get my kids out the door. Well, Follett community, as always, we kind of, in this webinar, I want to dig into a little bit of the story how Jed got to where he is today and kind of that journey. I'm a firm believer that all of those things have made you who you are today. And so I want to dig in a little bit, Jed. So let's start from kind of early days. Like let's talk about high school. Let's talk about where'd you grow up? Was football always on the horizon for you? Is that something that was just kind of an accident? Or let's talk about early days of Jed Collins.
Well, this is what I love. Going back to that origin story of, how I came to be today. And as you look at becoming an entrepreneur, you really do go back into your past and your history and question, are you crazy enough to take this adventure? I love to see my upbringing as the beginning of my success, but in a kind of ironic or a backwards way. I consider myself a great failure. And people hear that term, people kind of have a knee-jerk reaction and kind of say, well, why would you ever want to be considered a failure? Is because my growing up, no, football was not our sport. We were a basketball family. But I will say we prided ourselves, my father in particular, as student athletes. That term has kind of been lost in the last couple of years about where college athletes and things have gone. But we were very much academic first and then athletic second. But why I always learned how to fail and how to progress through failure was because I had older brothers. And believe it or not, my older brothers were better than me at basketball growing up, as most older brothers are. And my dad invented a game in our backyard called King for a Day, where me and my brothers would play one-on-one basketball, and the victor would get to walk off the court as king that day, as getting to tell his little brothers or whomever, I'm thirsty, go get me some water. The kennel's dirty, go clean out the kennel, take out the trash, getting to kind of boss us and be king for that day. And of the 1,000 times we played King for a Day, I vividly remember the 2 days I walked off as king. I will caution anyone who understands that they may not be king tomorrow. When you are king, be a gracious king, be very kind. But as I looked at that, I began to start measuring my days in the backyard, my days of competition, knowing I didn't control the outcome, knowing I probably wasn't going to win and be king. But I began to set a different measurement. I began to see the progression of what I could do and how much better I was getting, not comparing myself to them, but comparing to myself to who I was yesterday. And so I began to have the appetite and really the acceptance of I can fail without being defeated. I can show up tomorrow, even though I've lost, and still come back with the same fight and the same hunger. And if there is a skill that I could embody into any person, into my daughters, it would be that mindset, the ability to take a defeat, to take a failure and to still overcome it and to still come back from it. And I really think that held and stayed with me, through my high school days. I actually got to flip the script and become a winner, a champion. I lost very little in high school. In my college atmosphere, I struggled and we got to losing again. And then when I got to the NFL, I got cut 13 times by these teams, told me, hey, grab a trash bag, your dream is over. And it was that mindset to be able to say, not the outcome I wanted, look and review the locker room that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, and what could I steal and take away to come back again tomorrow a little bit better internally, even though I hadn't had the achievement that I had hoped for. So I look at kind of my upbringing as the beginning of being an entrepreneur, the beginning of being able to chase dreams, because I don't fear failure. And if anybody can kind of capsulate this mindset in a quick acronym, it would be FAIL, first attempt in learning. FAIL, your failures are the beginning of knowledge, and we know knowledge is power. And so if you can see a failure as a way you can learn, you can see a failure as a way you can be more successful. So don't fear failure, welcome it, but always turn it into knowledge, into feedback, and turn that knowledge into power. And I think that is kind of the origin of why I think I can take on the impossible mission that I'm on today.
That's amazing, man. I love that. FAIL, flip the
There you
script,
go.
right?
Yeah.
On what that means. That's amazing. I think I shared with you kind of a little bit of my personal journey in that,
Hmm.
watching my parents, watching my dad create, create his first church and nobody showing up and having 50 empty chairs and kind of the journey of entrepreneurship of, you see this vision, whether it's entrepreneurship or a sport or, whatever endeavor you're in, even teaching in a classroom, right? Like you have these hopes and dreams for what that classroom is gonna look like. And it doesn't always turn out that way day one, right? It takes time, it takes practice, it takes believing in that dream and that hope. And then, if you keep at it enough times, you see it through. I've listened to so many podcasts about the journey of like Nike and all these companies. I mean, it was a rough road, right?
Oh,
it was tough, man. Well, talk to me a little bit. So you said you got cut 13 times. I see a couple helmets behind you
Yes, sir.
up there. Sounds like eventually things went through. But what was that? What was that like? What was that like? Kind of going through that part of your journey. And how did you kind of just take that and say, okay, I'm gonna keep going?
It was a privilege and an honor. Obviously, I'm playing in the NFL. This is the 1% of the 1% who get to even walk in these doors. But it was so damaging, so hard every time I got that call. But again, I tried to change my mindset. I continue to challenge and ask my friends, my family, like, should I keep chasing this dream? And my brothers gave me very great advice. Like, Jed, you're trying to live in a dream. Reality is going to be there whenever you're done. You're going to go get a real job. Chase it as long as you can. And so really what I looked at was every time I got cut, they kept someone. Every time I got cut, they kept 53 other players. What were those players doing? And I began to stumble onto an unwritten language, kind of this unspoken code I call rookie to veteran, this mindset and this development of how to go from this young, brash, maybe cocky rookie to a confident veteran who knows their value and has built and earned the trust of the team. And so each building I walked into, I started taking, I'm a big journaler. I love writing down, capturing the day, capturing my thoughts. Why I get to see where I've come from and where I am is because of those journals. And so I would document, what was the difference between Andy Reid and Sean Payton? What was the difference between a 20-year kicker and a 15-year center? Like, why is this 11-year defensive lineman still around? A linebacker making it 16 years, I don't play linebacker anymore, but can I learn from that person? And so it was really this rookie to veteran mindset. Not only did it take the mindset and the tangibles, but it was also the habits. And I started to look at what habits were these guys doing. Working next to Drew Brees for 4 years, you realize that guy is anything. He is a habit. Everything is a process, a system, and an efficiency. And so I started to really kind of challenge myself. If I was going to have the opportunity to walk into a room in a world that I probably shouldn't have been in the first place, I run a 5-flat 40, which anybody who's ever seen the NFL Combine knows nobody who runs 5 flats makes it in this business, let alone a fullback meant to play on the special teams units. I looked at who I was and I started to realize I can beat the game. I can learn how to succeed. Why? Going back to that original failure mindset, I'm a tough guy to kill. You can cut me, you can cut me. I just don't go away. As we've been talking here, I probably have had 2 emails tell me no from a school, from a company, from somebody saying, Jed, we don't want you, get out of here. But it is the determination and it is the focus of, why am I doing this? I am chasing a dream. If dreams were easy, everybody would accomplish them. And I think the most underscored element of being an entrepreneur today, everybody sees the social media TikTok that says, watch this journey in 30 seconds. And like you said, we see Nike today and you glorify it. But nobody understands and appreciates you don't chase dreams. You crawl and inch and struggle after dreams. One day it could become this great glorified thing, but the likelihood is that day is never really going to come. So you continue to look at it and say, can I just progress? Can I move the ball further and further today, inch by inch? And adopting that inch mindset was one of the things, one of those creations of a habit that really changed me internally. So I love, we talked about before we jumped on today, do you have any regrets? Do I regret getting cut 13 times? No, because it made me the person that I am today. I would argue that had I had the same 7-year career, but I, got drafted, went to a team and stayed there for 7 years versus going undrafted, getting cut 13 times, and then becoming the number one fullback in the business, the best in the world at it. I have this badge of honor and this skill set that I get to take away from the game of football into my family life, my financial life, my professional life. I get to review and analyze the growth that it forced me to go through. And everybody wants to get to the end of the journey. Very few people are really gung ho and excited about growing. And the reality is, again, dreams don't come easy. You're going to have to pivot. Anybody who thinks day one they're going to find success isn't chasing something very hard.
I love that, man. I love that. We have a lot of teachers and librarians on our webinar today. And as I'm thinking about that, and I'm listening to your story. I'm a former teacher myself. It's there's a Jed Collins in that classroom, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a Gary Hensley. There's a head of Nike. There's this awesome poem that one of the great coaches used to recite, and it was like the question was, they asked me why I teach. And the reply was, how could I find better, more splendid company? And it was about this teacher's view of the classroom, that it wasn't just the kids in the classroom, it was what their future selves were going to be. And what an important role, right? What an important lesson to teach. So you teachers, librarians out there, keep at it. There are Jed Collins in your classroom. You never know. That encouragement, that stick-to-itiveness, that that ability to inspire kids is just such a huge portion. And I'm listening to your story. I'm saying, man, that's awesome. I hope these teachers take that and find that Jed Collins in their classroom.
And in many ways, we have seen that, over the last few years, we're past COVID, but in many senses, COVID is still around on a daily basis. Go into any classroom in the country. You look at librarians, their world has pivoted and shifted over the last 5 years. And it's in many senses that same mindset. I can be defeated by what is my situation. Why? Because things have changed and maybe I've gotten setbacks or things like that. But it really is identifying and addressing, this is the landscape today. My skills, who I am, those haven't changed. The landscape may have changed, but now it has an opportunity to be creative, to be innovative, to look for ways and reasons why you're an educator, why I'm an educator, is the connection and the impact. How can I take what I was doing traditionally, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and still install that same impact, even though the landscape in the world, even the student has changed? So I love that call out of this mindset is for not just the student, it is absolutely for the educators, because I would argue mental health, we see the epidemic going across students today. Educators are an overlooked and underappreciated group of our American backbone, and they need this mental health check. They need these skills and tool belt that they are able to take a defeat, take a loss today, get cut, come back tomorrow, look that student back in the face and say, I'm here for you. And I'm here because in 10 years, you're going to remember that I showed up the day after you said that to me, than you are going to remember whatever I responded with.
Man, powerful. So, kind of looking back as you're going through this, so you got cut 13 times. You eventually,
Eventually.
made it. That's always the story, right? It's eventually you kept at it, became the best in your field, top rated fullback against all the odds. So what were the struggles? Like, what were the NFL struggles as you were kind of, fast forwarding a little bit, you started, My Money Vehicle, but what were you watching in there and saying, man, there's that spark of, hey, there's a problem here. There's a moment of like, hey, this isn't working for some reason. And you took some action on that. What was that? And just a side note, I was talking to a friend of mine, who knew you, like he knew you. And I asked him, hey, what do you know about Jed Collins? And he said, oh, financial literacy. I mean, it was like that. So your time in with the Saints, so this is not something new for you. This was something that started, it sounds like it started while you were playing. What did you see?
So I'll respond in kind of three parts. So first off, the biggest change was really in my mindset, as we've talked about, but it was accepting the humility of a fullback. I was a receiving tight end in college. I was a all-state linebacker. I was always used to being the guy, like one of the captains, one of the guys who gets his name in the newspaper. A fullback is not that. A fullback is a servant. A fullback's literal job is to open the way for somebody else. And so one of the big things I had to accept was the character that these coaches and these NFL teams wanted me to play. Naturally, you've met me. I'm not a aggressive, mean, kind of tough guy on my exterior. I'm not a small dude, but I'm just not naturally an aggressive human. The fullback character on a team has to have that tenacity. And so one of the big things I realized, and I've helped a lot of players realize, is you play a character on a team. You are an X in their scheme and in their plan. Show them that you are that character. Whether you're acting or not doesn't matter. You put that helmet on, you're an actor. You play your part. And so a big change in me mentally was be the fullback. I grew my hair real long like Samson because I believed it would give me strength. I was really scruffy. I'd meet players and people from my playing days today, and they look at me and they go, that's not Jed. That's Jed in there? Like, whoa. All right. And I go, hey, thank you. It makes me feel good. I lost a little weight. So it was really playing the character helped me learn. And I had to learn what that character was as I was getting cut and bounced around. And I want to reference back to that inch mindset because it was so impactful. I had a 16-year linebacker tell me, man, all I do every day is come in and steal inches. And he showed me, he goes, I come in, I steal this. And he goes, because this leads to a yard to a first down to a touchdown to a win. And wins get us to the Super Bowl, which is why we all show up anyway. But it starts with this. And that mindset to me was so impactful. I, as a fullback, a lead blocker, I wasn't going to move people out of the way. I wasn't going to knock people over. This is the National Football League. That linebacker makes millions of dollars. My battle was measured in 6 inches. So I started to look at Monday to Saturday was 6 days a week. If I stole an inch every day, by the time Sunday came around, I'd already won that battle. I would go into those collisions. I would move my opponent back 6 inches and I would get a plus, which led me to being the #1 rated fullback and the best in the world at it. But every day I woke up with that small mindset. As I shifted, obviously we can take this inch mindset, quickly parallel it to financial literacy and compound interest and the amazing things that little subtle changes and things can do. But my journey 15 years ago, truly 15 years ago, I wrote in my journal, as a rookie, I wish I could come back and speak this language to Jed as a rookie. I was an accounting major, a business degree. Nobody had sat me down and said, Jed, you're going to make $100,000. Here's what you should go do with it. The NFL, the checks are even bigger than that, but it doesn't matter how big the check is. If you don't know what to do with it, it doesn't matter. So I looked at my first paycheck and I spent every dime of it before it even hit the bank account. I say that not necessarily ashamed. It turned out to be the best investment I've ever made. I bought an engagement ring. She's still around. It's a cute story. But the habit and the relationship I had with money was very broken. And so 15 years ago, I wrote, I wanted to come back and teach young Jed this language. It set me on a journey. I went Borders bookstores. I started getting the gurus, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, Kiyosaki, all things I could absorb and digest. How was I supposed to do this game? How was I supposed to capture this NFL dream? But what kept coming back to me was, why isn't anybody teaching high school, college students how to begin with their first paycheck? I understand wealth management. I understand when you got $1 million, I can manage, help it. We can do a bunch of things and you pay me to do that. But how do I get to the $1 million? How do I begin the journey, not necessarily land the plane? And why wasn't this a class that I have taken? Was it just big dumb jock missed the meeting or missed this session? And what I kept coming back to was, no, I didn't miss anything. It just wasn't a common core class. It wasn't a language that people were being educated in. And so I went out, started reading those books, and finally a mentor of mine challenged me. If you want to really understand this language, start studying for your certification in financial planning. The CFP gives you a fundamental knowledge of everything in personal finance. You're not an expert at anything, and I remind CFPs that all the time. There's a reason we have a team. You don't know it all, but it began that base level understanding. And once I started to understand and how to speak this language of money, my passion grew. My first students were guys in the locker room who would ask me why they were losing so much money by putting it in a 401k. They were asking me about health insurance. They were asking me about taxes. And I started to be able to explain to them and understand how this opportunity was truly going to be captured. I will say 15 years later, I get to partner with the National Football League's Players Association. I was with the Titans this week. I was with the Seahawks this week. I'll meet with about half of the NFL teams in empowering these guys to speak the language. Our title of the actual sessions I deliver is Decades, Not Days. Your NFL dream is eventually going to be measured in decades, not days. You made $1 million at age 23. You're a rich rookie. And I tell them that at the beginning. I love walking in. There's 15 rookies. They just getting their first checks. I say, congratulations, Gary. You're a rich rookie. By the end of this session, you're going to understand that's an insult, because the goal is not to be a rich rookie. The goal is to be a wealthy veteran. Those habits, those mindsets I stole from rookie to veteran, I get to incorporate, but it's really the practices and the fundamentals of this language of money that I get to start to break down and get them to digest and understand. And it was 10 years ago that I realized I love NFL players. I love professional athletes, but this is a much bigger problem than these guys who are getting $1 million contracts and not using it the correct way. This is an everybody problem. I ask superintendents right and left, what is one thing every one of your students will have in common? And they are perplexed. There's very, very little that every high school graduate will have in common. One of them is they're all going to receive a paycheck. Have you prepared them for that? And that's where the passion, that's where the mission and really the drive and vision for Money Vehicles started was, why isn't there a high school curriculum that speaks to the student and empowers the educator to break this language down and deliver it in their classroom? And eventually I had a gentleman in one of my sessions challenge and ask me, he said, Jed, you're a great presenter, but how are you going to teach? How are you going to change 1 million people? You're not going to be able to go room to room. And at that moment, that was the moment I became an ed tech founder and started to realize my message was going to have to grow in a way that was not physically Jedediah Collins.
Wow, man. Wow. What a journey. What a journey. Yeah. Yeah. And the journey is kind of part of, I mean, I love that backstory. What I see from NFL players is, especially after they're out of the league, is they have a platform, right? And you've done a great job of taking that platform, taking that opportunity, and kind of saying, hey, I saw a problem in the league. This is actually a larger problem for the United States of America, particularly for our K-12 schools, and then kind of bringing, you could have stopped there and said, hey, yeah, somebody should do something about this.
Somebody should. Who's crazy enough to try? Oh.
But that inch by inch mentality, I love that, right? So when you're talking to students, like, I get the rookie, coming in 18 years old, big paycheck, awesome. Like every high school student, maybe some of that's changing. We could talk about that a little bit. There's more money flowing towards high schools than there ever used to be with some of the changes in the rules. But that aside, talking to students, just the everyday kid who's like, yeah, that's great, Jed. That sounds like an issue for me 4 years from now.
Yeah.
What are the basics? Like, what are the fundamentals? Why would they care about this?
So the first chapter of Money Vehicle is introducing why we, one, term it Money Vehicle. And that idea is to get students to see money as a vehicle. Money is a verb. It is a tool that you used. So money is not our destination. We want students to really sit in the driver's seat of this vehicle and be able to handle it, be able to move it in the direction that they want to go. And so as we look at this, where we need to begin is what has shifted and changed in the financial industry. we call out this idea of pensions. Do you know how many pensions are actually left? There are 94, 95% of pensions that have gone away in the last 2 decades. Why? Because companies don't want your financial future on their balance sheet. They want it on your balance sheet. Social Security has been misunderstood and miscalculated, and all these other items. Will Social Security be there? Yes. Calm the social media posts. But as we look at it, it's not going to be something that you depend or have an entire plan built on your Social Security paycheck. Inflation alone that we are seeing is going to make it more and more of a supplemental, not a primary. So why do students care? Because they're the first generation in history where their financial futures are 100% in their chair, in their driver's seat. Why are you caring? And what our goal is, because you go into a student, you talk about retirement. Money Vehicle does not say the word retirement because it is often misunderstood and it's too often the distant. Students don't appreciate it. We use financial freedom. Why? Everybody, you look at the FIRE movement, everybody wants to be free. I don't have to be 65, 67 to be free. Freedom comes when my plan is in place, I trust it, and it's taking me where I want to go, and it's providing a desired lifestyle, which is another term that we really try to get them to understand. It's defining that for them. So as we start to look at those shifts in terms, we don't say budget, we say cash management. Again, a more empowering term, a more empowering way to think about money. We turn taxes into your society choice. So the goal is to create a conversation that a student will be interested in. I don't care about becoming a mega money millionaire. It's not tangible today. One of our acronyms is RICH, RICH, reachable, individual, controllable, and happy goals. Can I set a 1 week goal to learn something? Can I set a 1 month goal to stop a bad habit? Can I set a 1 year goal that I look at something I'm going to do today that will come to fruition 1 year from now? Outside of a year, it is really hard for a student to understand the language of money. Yes, we try to expand their horizon with what we call the investor mindset. A spendor sees the money on day to day. A saver sees the money month to month, maybe year to year. An investor looks at money through that decade-long horizon. That is not where you can start, but you are challenging these students to say, if you don't care about your future, shocking, no one else does. What this program, what this class can do, it can give you a skill in a subject that even beyond your days on high school campuses is going to impact you each and every day. So where and how do we try to engage and get a student interested in a quote unquote boring topic like financial literacy? Here's our secret. We make it about the 17-year-old student. Yes, you go through the course. Yes, you go through 12 topics, an entire curriculum. There are exams, there are tests, there are projects, there are everything. But what we've done is created this capstone character creation project where the 17-year-old doesn't say, I can tell you what a tax bracket is, or I can tell you what a credit card is. That 17-year-old develops a character, whether it's them, like you were saying, high school students make money today, whether it's them in 3 years, whether it's a completely made up person, doesn't matter. You are going to build a financial plan for that individual. Now you're going to take that credit chapter that we walked through, credit cards, credit scores, your financial reputation. Now you're going to go online and you're going to tell me which credit card your character opened up and why. Based on what you learned in this chapter, tell me exactly what you're going to go do. How do you apply it? Education without action fails, especially in financial literacy. So we need to empower them to take actions. So we are getting them interested in this language by one, making it more of an updated, fresh, and new conversation, terms and ideas that they want to discuss. But two, putting them in the driver's seat and saying, the most important part of this class is not what you can regurgitate and tell me. It's what you can show me you are going to go do. Here is your character. Here's your plan. If by the end of this program, you can talk me through the first 12 steps of a financial journey, you're not a mega money millionaire, but your 12 steps are what we call the first mile of money down the road.
That's amazing, man. I really, as I'm thinking, I have 3 kids, and just thinking about my own personal journey, I wish they had learned some of these things, right? So I'm gonna take some of what I've heard today and kind of try to reiterate that to them. But I was thinking, Follett has a product that I created called Destiny Fundraising
No
Manager.
big deal. Name drop.
No big deal. No big deal. And fundraising is, one, a huge part of athletics.
Yes.
We have a lot of coaches, that use the platform, a lot of football teams that use the platform to raise money. We have a lot of, band organizations, fine arts, a lot of these programs that just need supplemental supplemental money to kind of keep these programs going. And one of the questions we often get is, what is the best way to kind of evaluate fundraising? And I was thinking about what you said, and, in a lot of ways, it's exactly like you think about financial literacy, right? How much money are you making? What are your expenses? And then, everything on top of that, what do you do? What do you do with that? So if you're evaluating and you're going to take that financial literacy approach to saying, hey, let me let me school you on how to look at fundraising or how to look at really any business or any, nonprofit, what advice would you give?
So we have something called the golden rule in Money Vehicle. One, if you could take one sentence out of the entire curriculum and build a financial plan around it, use the golden rule. Do not spend more than you make, which was traditionally the golden rule. Become a saver. But we've realized in today's world, you got to go beyond to become an investor. So it's do not spend more than you make and focus on what you keep. And so when we start to look at this idea of philanthropic endeavors, of fundraising, of where these dollars are going for an altruistic, bigger picture and a bigger impact, we really have to look at it as that investor mindset. Focus on what you keep. We got to look at not only why and what we're putting our dollars towards, but how much of it is actually making it there. I really, as a former wealth manager, one of the biggest questions as we started walking through how you choose investments to how you find a CPA was always, where are the fees? How does that person, that company make money? We introduced the concept and the idea of a fiduciary versus the suitability clause. You have to be able to look at your fundraising and be able to understand everything is a business. You put nonprofit in front of it, it's still a nonprofit business. It has income, it has expenses, it has assets, it has liabilities. Breaking down the fundamentals and looking at where you are trying to raise dollars. You mentioned one of the big ones I'm being introduced to because my daughters are now in elementary and middle school. Band. Those instruments, those aren't cheap and they're definitely not free. So I want to raise $1,000 to buy new band equipment. Where if I raise that $1,000, what fees are going to be taken out? How many of those dollars are actually arriving at that school to make that impact? And so I really look at fundraising at its fundamental financial literacy. And you say, what fees, what salaries, what expenses are being taken out of what this concept and altruistic endeavor I'm pursuing? And I think that big first one of how to calculate, how to understand, I want to make the most impact I can. What vessel is going to allow me to do that?
Awesome. I love that. As everybody's, you've seen the headlines in the US, right? This year in particular, schools are struggling. Their deficits. You're finding creative ways to kind of offset that. Fundraising is obviously part of that. That's part of our mission. And of course, a business has to make money, right? So you can't fault businesses for making money, but we try with Destiny Fundraising Manager to give as most money as possible to the actual fundraising effort, like the band equipment or whatever it is, while still being able to maintain the platform. So I love that analogy. That's true of us. I mean, I hope people apply that philosophy regardless of what company they're looking at. But it's definitely something as a parent, when I created this, I was like, man, that was actually why I created it. There was a company that was taking 40% of the money. And I was like, that's crazy. I can't believe that that's even legal
Allowed.
to do. Allowed. It's like, that's insane. So that set me down my journey to go find out like why and what we can do about it. So,
And I will say, kind of connecting some dots about what you were referencing around how NIL has changed college athletics, high school athletics, and be prepared. And people call me crazy. There's going to be millionaires in middle school before you know it. So
Wow.
this is all happening as we speak. But the biggest concern around NIL when it first came out was the lack of transparency and really just the economics and industries that were starting to pop up. If I gave a collective $1,000, how much was going to the athlete? And so, as you do look at these fundraising machines and tools, this is the biggest question. What is their structure? What is their setup? How and can they be transparent with me? Again, everybody needs a fee, everybody understands, but can you show me exactly what those fees are? And we looked at NIL, and there were crooks in the first year or two of this endeavor. And now it's just trickling down to new and more people. You have to be able to see, I want to make this impact. Again, what is the financials of that company? What is their purpose? And are they truly in this for the same reasons?
Love it. I mean, you got to align the mission, right? Like but ask questions. I think that's
Ask
the thing
questions.
I've learned the most when it comes to money. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. I like talking to you about this. I always learn something new when we talk both about life in general. I learned a couple acronyms today. A new definition of fail.
Awesome.
So when and thinking about the teachers and the librarians and the folks on the call, what can they do to incorporate financial literacy, outside of having in a curriculum? And I think it's important that there be dedicated time to that. But I'm a big believer in kind of cross-functional, right? Financial literacy, I used to do this when I taught science. It's like science was everywhere. Maybe it was because I was a science teacher, so I thought that it's like every, hammer thinks everything's a nail. But
Yep.
I was like, hey, science is math, science is business, science is, any curriculum, any element that you're teaching, there's a way to incorporate science into it. So we've got probably a broad range of teachers on the call. How can they incorporate financial literacy into their everyday?
Exactly what you just said. Ask questions. One of the things we are trying is to create that conversation. You don't need to go through the curriculum to be curious. A student comes and tells you about something they purchased. Do they know about sales tax? Do they quantify or add up or include that sales tax? They start talking to you about things that they want to buy or ways they want to make money or open a bank account. What are questions they should ask their banker? Continue to be curious. Arm people with questions. I think that is the biggest miss we have seen in financial literacy is everybody is trying to get you to the answer, the product, the thing. Money Vehicle, we're trying to teach you how to fish. We're not giving you the actual fish. So if I am a teacher and I'm trying to look around my world, I drove here on roads. Do we know taxes go towards supporting roads? I am a public educator. My salary is paid by taxes. Can we get a positive connection and why we change it from taxes to your society choice? But as you look at a student's conversation and the student's statements, one of the biggest ones I've heard over the last few years is, I'm putting all my money into Robinhood. Robinhood's an amazing tool. It's opened up doors and investment to a lot of people. But I can give you about 84 questions based on that statement alone that is going to create a conversation. Number one, it's typically a brokerage account. Have you ever thought about a tax advantage account? What is that exactly? Number two, what are those fees we were just discussing? Robinhood is great. It's got no fees here and there, but there's a fee in everything. People got to make money somehow. How are they making money? Number three, you're choosing your investments. How much time did you take reading that company's 10K report to really understand what they are doing? Or God forbid, you're betting or on derivatives and shorts and all these things or these meme stocks. I love that people are being introduced to investing into finances, but we have to continue to arm them with the questions they should ask before they take those actions. And so, like you said, as science teachers seeing science everywhere, as a financial literacy ambassador, I see money everywhere in every decision, every choice we make, whether it's, hey, you drove here? Great. Did you get insurance? Do you know you legally have to have insurance? Why do you think you have insurance? Do you think insurance protects your car? Insurance doesn't protect your car. What does insurance actually protect? It protects these other drivers around on the road. playing through all of those items, taking a subtle comment and just being curious and asking questions allows you to open that door in a conversational way, not a lecture. I seldom, obviously, in this audience, it's very hard to ask the crowd for questions and create a conversation. But if I'm in person, I don't use PowerPoints anymore. I don't try to lecture about what I know. I try to engage in a conversation. If we end up pivoting and going in a direction I never wanted to or planned on going, it was about you anyway. And so as long as you're curious in that individual, getting some value out of it, you're going to be able to see financial literacy in a lot more than you'd expect.
Awesome. I love that. And for our teachers and librarians, really, we probably have a broad mix of people on this call, but we'll provide some resources and kind of links to Jed's stuff. I think he has a ton of great material, link to his website for My Money Vehicle and kind of what they're doing, particularly for teachers and creating those conversations in the classroom. We'll do that towards the end of the webinar. So talk to me a little bit about, let's talk about the company itself. I know we've kind of dropped hints and at this point, you do have a company. This is what you do on a day-to-day basis. Tell us a little bit about My Money Vehicle.
So it began with that passion, began with that curiosity. Today, proud to say we're in over 20 states, and we are the most complete, comprehensive, and cohesive curriculum on financial literacy in the country. I say that, people kind of look at me like, well, have you heard of or have you seen? Yes, I've heard of, I've seen it all. There is no other curriculum that was created for a high school classroom. There was no other curriculum that was cohesive in nature to where chapter 1 is going to connect to and understand chapter 7, let alone the assessment and the final at the end. There is a through-lined messaging here. There is an engagement for our educators. And really, again, what we are trying to pride ourselves in is being engaging for that student, but making it easy for our educators, building out our lesson plans, our syllabus, our pacing guides, in-class resources, slide by slide, covering the textbook, covering the video library, covering the workbook. How do you confidently have a conversation about money in a classroom? That was our guiding light about preparing our educators. And so I do love the analogy that we've built because, as I mentioned the character project earlier, each of the 12 topics has a specific action. Each topic also connects to a physical car. What do high school students age understand? They understand a car. So if we can show you that chapter 3 around cash management is really your steering wheel, chapter 6 around investing is your engine, even breaking it down to, well, how do you make a car more efficient? You make it a hybrid. What does a hybrid money vehicle look like? It's a tax advantaged account. Well, Jed, how are you going to teach 401ks, IRAs, Roth accounts to high school students? We're going to use trees. Why? Because money vehicle is translating the language of money. We are educators at heart, and we are looking at how can you trim a tree? How can we parallel that analogy to our taxes in these accounts? So we are storytellers. We are out truly trying to become a gold standard curriculum. All of these states nationwide, over the last 3 years, we've seen 30 plus states mandate in their core curriculum to graduate high school, you got to go through financial literacy. I look at this and I say 10 years ago, we were, as a company and as Jed, the individual, focused on what to teach. These standards are still focusing and they're now coming out with what to teach. We've spent the last decade really harnessing how to teach it and why it is going into each section, because it relates to the entirety of a financial plan for that first paycheck. So where and who we are, I would challenge you, and we have not found anybody, check out Money Vehicle, yourmoneyvehicle.com. If you can go through our curriculum and tell us there's something better out there, I'll gladly end my pursuit.
I love that. That's a challenge.
That's a challenge.
It's interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about the access to technology, right? This is what happened in crowdfunding. It used to be fundraising was for people that had the tools and that had all of the, resources, or a family member that knew how to do fundraising. And then Kickstarter came out, and Indiegogo came out, and GoFundMe came out, and all of these platforms started to kind of enter the market, and it started to bring everyday people into the world of fundraising, which is awesome. Like in a society that you can kind of leverage technology to do that. On the flip side of that, for schools, it created challenges, right? And so there had to be kind of a carve out. So I love that it's not just about like, hey, go to an investment platform, name it. There are many out there, right? That's amazing technology to put that investment tool in the hands of everyday people, everyday investors, that you don't have to go through like a special person to do that. But at the same time, you need safeguards. You need to understand it, right? And so the idea that you can help students understand what that means and how to do that in a safe way is absolutely phenomenal. And by the way, my son is 16, and that's all he thinks about is driving. So I can totally relate to that. Yeah. All right, so we're going to do something different that we have never done before on our webinar series. This is the lightning round. We're going to end. I just want to say thank you again. We'll get to some of the contact details, but we're going to go through this really quickly. Jed has not been prepared ahead of time with these questions, so we're going to kind of go. All right, number one, cat or dog?
Dog, and he's sleeping in the corner right now.
Favorite NFL moment?
Favorite NFL moment? Hugging another undrafted guy, making it in New Orleans once we finally heard we made the 53-man roster, in the locker room, embracing and just being like, man, this was a journey. I will never forget that moment.
Amazing. Morning person or night owl?
I'm a 5 a.m. clubber. I get up, I wake the weights up. I'm the first one in the building. And again, we talked about getting older. I am no longer a night owl.
I'm saying, I guess, related topic, coffee or energy drink?
Coffee, but I don't have my coffee, so I get up at about 5:15. I have my coffee around 8:30. My wife thinks I'm very strange and weird in that, but no, I've never been an energy drink guy. Never got into energy drinks.
First job?
First job, playing in the NFL. We were focused athletes through high school, through college. I mean, I guess being a college athlete is a job in itself, but my first real job was wealth management, working at Brighton Jones. So yeah, I guess NFL was the first kind of paycheck that I started making.
Not a bad first job, I'll say.
That's
one of the better ones. Mine was a busboy, so you got me.
There you go. Yeah.
What was your most embarrassing moment on the field?
Most embarrassing? I mean, thank you for bringing this up. I fumbled again. I fumbled against the New York Giants, and yeah, having 80,000 people look at you and go, man, that guy might not be here on Monday, is a really, really humbling thought. And as an undrafted guy, my mindset was always, I don't get chances. I get one opportunity. And if I mess that up, I might be gone. That was the most humbling thing probably in my career, was, again, probably not being as fearful as I was probably too fearful, but that was embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, we all got embarrassing.
I will also say it wasn't me, but it was realizing some of the older kickers would actually urinate on the sidelines behind like little towels and stuff. So that was an embarrassing one when I was asked to hold a towel so a grown man can tinkle on the sideline.
That's funny. Favorite coach?
My favorite coach would have to go to Bob Johnson, my high school coach. Changed my life, believed in me. A gentleman that, throughout my life, I've always leaned on as a mentor and a role model. And he was one of those people that, really challenged you to say, if you don't believe who you want to be, why would anyone else? And he would come at you as a young man and be able to do that. So definitely Bob Johnson, Mission Viejo.
Love it, Mission Viejo. I know that area.
Yeah.
Last question. Best advice you've ever received.
Best advice I've ever received. I love quotes. I love philosophers. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Uh, each man, and I need to update that. Obviously, each person is better than me in some way. From that, I will learn from them. I love that quote. I, have a sister with special needs. It gives you a perspective of meeting people. You have no idea what's going on in somebody else's life. Approach them with the idea that they can give you a ray of sunshine, a nugget of knowledge, something, and you'll have a much better interaction. And if you do it with a smile, usually it's met pretty well.
Awesome. Jed, I want to thank you again for kind of spending some time with us. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. If you want to find out more information or connect with Jed, I put his LinkedIn profile in that QR code. So if you just use your phone and kind of get that QR code, if you'd like to stay connected with me and all of the things that Follett is doing, that is my LinkedIn QR code there. And we would love to continue the conversation online. Jed, if you want to find out more about My Money Vehicle, make sure that you go to, is it mymoneyvehicle? Are those at mymoneyvehicle.com?
Yourmoneyvehicle.com.
Your Money Vehicle.
Vehicle.
Yourmoneyvehicle.com. I appreciate your time. I know taking an hour out of your day is not easy to do. I hope you found value in that, and I hope you connect with us online. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.